Welcome back to another episode of Mysteries of Asia, guys. And before you comment on my nails, yes, it is black because I went for a external shoot and I had to do it. But I think it's a bit, it's kind of growing on me. Look, there's a little smiley face here, quite cute. It's a smiley face and it's no face over here. So cute. Look at that. Anyway, today we're talking about Weng. When I was doing some research on this story, it just made my blood boil. It's quite a traumatic story, especially for the victims. Today we're talking about Singapore's most notorious predator. Humid haze of June 2012, a sister's curiosity turned into a nightmare that would unravel one of Singapore's most disturbing criminal sagas. Checking her 11-year-old brother's phone, she stumbled upon a string of messages. Innocent at first glance, but dripping with an undercurrent of menace. The text she found was totally inappropriate for her 11-year-old little brother to be receiving. The sender, a man named Weng, a seemingly unremarkable Malaysian engineer living a quiet life in Singapore, but what she uncovered would plunge her family and an entire nation into a vortex of shock, revulsion, and disbelief. Yap wasn't just a man with a secret. He was a predator, a calculating, relentless monster who preyed on the innocent, leaving a trail of shattered lives in his wake. The police would discover Yap's cache of over 2,000 obscene videos depicting his indecent acts with young victims, all of whom were boys, leading to Yap's infamy as Singapore's most notorious child predator, Yap Weng. Yap Weng was born in 1983 in Ipoh, Malaysia. He was the eldest of 3 siblings. However, his upbringing was far from glossy. His father left the family for New Zealand, leaving Yap's mother to shoulder the responsibility of raising 3 children all on her own. And I can imagine how hard that can be, especially in Malaysia in the 90s when economic opportunities were scarce. Moreover, for Yap, he didn't really have a father figure to look up to, and I think that's a very important thing for a young man. But the most devastating experience of his childhood occurred when he was in primary school. According to his lawyer, when Yap was just 12 years old, he had his first sexual encounter with his male mathematics teacher. 12 years old. God damn, that's like primary 6. And this of a teacher would go on to engage in very inappropriate acts with Yap, including both oral and these encounters would occur at least once or twice a week, and it lasted for 9 months until Yap finished school. Like, doesn't that just make your blood boil? Like, dude, primary 6 student had to go through this twice a week for 9 months. Insane, man. It is because of his lack of fatherly love in his childhood that Yap believed that his sexual acts with his teacher were acts of love and intimacy. Imagine your teacher, an authoritative figure who is supposed to guide you, ends up manipulating and abusing you. Like, that's so fucked up, man. And I think this is a very common thread where an abused victim would go on to abuse others in their later years. Same with serial killers and many other criminals. And there's a saying that I think is very relevant to this. When something terrible happens to you, there are 2 ways that you can deal with it. You either become a hero and promise to never let it happen to anyone else again, or you turn into a villain, taking that pain and resentment and inflicting it upon the world. And Yap clearly chose to become a villain. But Yap was not your typical villain. He emerged into adulthood as a man of unassuming demeanor. A quality assurance engineer by trade, Yap moved to Singapore in 2009, seeking the promise of opportunity. With his boyish look and soft-spoken nature, he blended seamlessly into the bustling urban tapestry. Another face in the crowd, unnoticed and unremarkable. His colleagues even characterized him as a reserved individual who preferred to keep to himself and seldom engaging in extensive conversations. But beneath this facade lurked a mind twisted by compulsion, a predator cloaked in the garb of normalcy. Yap's crimes began not with a bang, but with a whisper. A digital whisper that slithered through the veins of the internet. His hunting ground was social media, where innocence was just a click away. Yap crafted a persona as an 18-year-old polytechnic student, using aliases like Loon or simply Loon. But I think he could have used lunatic as well, because he's obviously crazy. He would scour platforms like Facebook, which was rapidly gaining traction back then, especially among the younger generation who were quick to embrace its connectivity. I myself remember receiving like sus-ass Facebook messages from weirdos, but I would always ignore them, thankfully. Maybe Yup even messaged me before, I don't know. So please be careful on the internet, guys, especially for my younger viewers. Only accept friend requests from people that you know. Yup would zero in on boys, relentlessly sending Facebook friend requests to victims specifically between the ages of 11 to 15, right on the cusp of adolescence. They all tended to be living near his rental apartments, first in New Upper Changi Road and then later in Yishun, woo! Where we are right now. Yishun, baby.
Home ground.
Home ground. This is not helping our case at all. How are we gonna rid Yishun of this stigma? In his online exchanges with victims, Yup would position himself as a supportive older brother or a guide to win their confidence and gain their trust, engaging in chats and messages that stretched over weeks or even months. Conversation topics would first start off light. For example, he would discuss his interests like hobbies, films, sports, video games, you know, your everyday boyish conversations. But he would always subtly steer these conversations toward more sexual topics, weaving them into the dialogue. Once trust was secure, the trap snapped shut. Yup would proceed to arrange for meetups with his victims under the pretext of giving them gifts, playing computer games, or giving tips about bodybuilding. That one caught me a little bit off guard. Is he fit? He better be a fit guy. Yeah, but we could only find one picture of Yup. It's quite difficult to find images of him. That was the only picture we managed to find on the internet. During these physical meetings, which took place in places like his rented Yishun flat, Hougang, Woodlands, Aljunied, Changi, a chalet at downtown East, even a hotel room in Geylang, and even toilet cubicles at public places like swimming pools and malls, Yup would convince his victims to allow him to perform indecent acts on them, often without a condom, which went on even if the boys refused, saying they were not homosexual, cried, or were reluctant. 30 victims were assaulted in this way during these meetings. One of these crimes took place on 4th February 2010, where in Hougang Swimming Complex, a 13-year-old boy was told to remove his school uniform in a toilet cubicle, where Yup S8'd him and filmed the act. In March 2010, another 15-year-old boy met up with Yup in a hotel, where Yup tried to undress and kiss the boy. Despite the victim's protest, Yup performed oral sex on him. On 25th September 2011, a 14-year-old boy was told to perform oral sex on Yup in a toilet cubicle in the Tampines Stadium. Another case, which took place on an unspecified date, involved a boy whom Yup met and chatted with for a few months on Facebook before their first physical meeting in a mall. After the duo had lunch and played arcade games, he took the boy to his rented room to watch cartoons online while his landlord was just in the living room next door. Yup later removed the boy's clothes and S8'd him, promising it would never happen again. However, each time they met, Yup assaulted him again, either before or after taking the boy outdoors to watch movies or eat outside. Yup's reign of terror wasn't confined to Singapore. During his annual trips back to Malaysia between 2009 and 2012, he struck again, targeting at least 14 more boys, all under 16 years old. The same playbook applied: online grooming, physical meetings, and the inevitable violation, all recorded for his perverse collection. These Malaysian victims, like their Singaporean counterparts, were left unidentified in many cases, their faces flickering in videos that police couldn't trace. The scale of his crimes: 31 confirmed victims in Singapore and 14 more in Malaysia. Some of you may be wondering, like, why didn't the boys say anything? They had years to say something to the authorities or at least tell someone about it, but all of them kept mum. Why? I don't think there's any straightforward answer to this, but just imagine someone you trust, maybe like an older brother figure, and he turns out to be manipulating you all this while and even forcing you to do something while you are at that impressionable age. You would be left very confused, like, wait, is what he's doing to me right? Is it right? Like, why is this koko doing this to me, someone that I look up to? Do I want to report this incident and disappoint my big brother? Or if they experience physical pleasure or emotional intimacy during their abuse, it might further complicate their ability to recognize the abuse. And I think that's a very important point. We also don't know if Yup has ever threatened to leak the videos he recorded of his victims or use it as blackmail material. So I think there are a lot of factors contributing to why the boys didn't speak up about it. It could even be shame. The unraveling began with that fateful discovery in June 2012. The sister's alarming discovery of her 11-year-old brother's text with Yap led to a police report filed, but it wasn't until September 2012 that the net tightened as another victim came forward, reporting that Yap had SA'd him. That very night, officers stormed Yap's Yishun flat, arresting the 29-year-old in a scene that shattered the illusion of his quiet life. What they found inside his apartment was a Pandora's box of depravity, laptops and phones brimming with evidence, a total of 2,218 videos that laid bare the magnitude of his sins. Each file was meticulously catalogued with the boys' names, ages, and the year he met them. Why your face like that?
Imagine, like, if you're the police officer,
You look so grossed out, like...
You have to look through 2,000 files.
Yeah.
Of
to find
boys.
evidence. They probably had to watch it and identify the boys. You know? Yeah, I guess it's also not an easy job being an investigation officer, especially with such heinous crimes like this, man. It was a digital archive of evil. Initially, Yap even tried to downplay it, admitting to just 3 boys. But the footage told a completely different story, a sprawling narrative of abuse that no lie could bury. The arrest sent shockwaves through Singapore. Colleagues who knew him as a diligent engineer, family members back in Malaysia who saw him as a dutiful son, they all recoiled in disbelief. His youthful appearance, those boyish looks that belied his 31 years, only deepened the horror. How could someone so ordinary harbor such darkness? The media frenzy that followed was relentless, with headlines screaming of a predator who would terrorize the nation. The Straits Times listed him among the top 10 newsmakers in 2015. Public warnings echoed. Parents were urged to monitor their children online, a grim reminder of the dangers lurking in the digital age. On January 16, 2015, Yap faced justice in Singapore's High Court. The charge sheet was a litany of horror, 76 counts of sexual offences against 31 boys, with 12 charges of sexual penetration of a minor proceeding to trial. The rest considered for sentencing. It was revealed that during his time working in Singapore, Yap, then 26 years old, began his predatory spree from November 2009 until June 2012, just 3 months before his arrest. Deputy Public Prosecutor David Khoo painted a damning picture. Yap was a clear and present danger, his risk of reoffending so high that only a severe sentence could shield society. In court, Yap offered remorse, a hollow apology to his victims and their families, promising never to repeat his crimes. But the evidence, those 2,000 plus videos, spoke louder than his words. The sentence came down like a guillotine. 30 years in prison and 24 strokes of the cane, the maximum corporal punishment allowed. Well deserved, I would say. In fact, I would say jail him for life, man. It was a verdict that reflected the gravity of his actions, the lives that he has scarred, the trust he shattered. For his Malaysian crimes, unfortunately, no charges were filed in Singapore as they fell outside jurisdiction, but the knowledge of those 14 additional victims hung heavy, a spectre of justice unserved. Today, as of April 6, 2025, Yap Weng remains incarcerated. His story isn't just a tale of crime, it's a chilling cautionary epic of a predator who hid in plain sight, and of the fragile line between trust and treachery in a connected world. The videos may be locked away, the cell door bolted shut, but the echoes of his deeds linger, a haunting reminder that evil doesn't always wear a monstrous face. Sometimes it smiles, chats, and waits until it's too late. And with that said, for my younger viewers, please be safe online. If you enjoyed this video, consider joining our channel membership. We actually post extra episodes of Mysteries of Asia there, so go check it out and support the channel if you like. Thank you for watching. Bye.